Just finished up with my heavy hamstring dominant leg day. Smashed some heavy RDLs, some heavy Cybex leg press. If you guys like these videos, be sure to subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Leave your questions. I'll be sure to get back to them. Let's go show you guys what I got into today.
Thought I was bluffing, where you at? I came here for vengeance, watch your back. No need to defend, I'm on attack. Sorry they can't reply, but I guarantee they had a blast. Pop, 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 I be on the next to only ya. I am fresh to death, just call the coroner.
What's up, guys? Leg day today. I haven't recorded one of my leg sessions in a long time, and there's been a pretty big overhaul to my leg sessions. So we'll go through that today. I'm gonna start with my warm-ups first. My hips have been crazy tight and I really need to work on my stability. I haven't been doing my warm-ups like I should be because everything's been feeling really solid. But I'm gonna show you guys the warm-up today, kind of go through it so you have an understanding of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just gonna stretch my hip to start out with. Good old couch stretch. Great to kind of open up that hip flexor in the front, stretch the quad a little bit. A lot of people will freak out if you stretch before you train, but if you are having issues with getting into positions and stretching can help you get to that position, it's probably a good idea. Now, what I wouldn't do is stretch my quad and then immediately go try and max out on a quad movement. That's probably a bad idea. But by opening things up here, I open up my mobility so that I can get into positions, but then I'm also going to integrate that mobility with the stability stuff that we'll do here in a second. So it's not as detrimental as so many people may think to stretch prior to training. What you'll see is I'm pushing forward from here. So this hip is going forward. I'm not just leaning forward, because that doesn't do anything for me. That actually takes the stretch off when I do that. So by pushing my hip forward, keeping this square, I've got a stretch in my quad, but I've also got a stretch right here in my hip flexor, which is what I want. I want to open up that rec fem, want to open up the hip flexor so that I can go position myself with everything else I'm doing. I don't time these. I just hold it till it starts to relax. Things start to feel a little bit better. Do whatever you want to. If you want to time it. Or you can go instinctually like me. One last stretch to kind of open up my mobility a little bit. My adductors are usually a problem. So good old 90-90 here will help open those up. And then we will integrate this mobility with the stability stuff right after this before we go to try to express strength. So you have to be able to get in the position, so I have to have the mobility to get there, and then my joint also has to have the stability in order for me to express strength to it. So in this context, my hips need to be able to get to positions and be stable in those positions for me to be able to train as hard as I can. That's the less fancy, smart way to say it, is you gotta be mobile, you gotta be stable before we try to like absolutely destroy ourselves with strength. A lot of people try to rush that process. They try to just move through patterns as fast as they can. Like they'll just immediately go to a movement. I was explaining this to a client earlier, like in my last session. Some of these things, like a pull down on a machine, it's not hard to do. So a lot of people will just get on it and just immediately start loading weight and try to move through it. But in the next couple of weeks, things start to break down. It doesn't start to feel as good. They start to have pain and they go, okay, well, I'm gonna go to something else that feels better. When, if they had just taken a slower process and allowed themselves to learn the movement pattern to begin with, they probably could have stuck with that piece of equipment for a longer period of time versus immediately trying to brutalize themselves with weight. Learn the skill. You'll see this is a static 90-90 hip stretch. 90-90 because this is at 90 degrees and this is at 90 degrees. You may not be able to be vertical like this, and you may have to have a hand out here to kind of prop yourself up. That's fine. Give yourself time to be able to get more mobile, but over time we want to work to where we can sit upright like this. I can really feel a solid stretch on the inside of my thigh here, which is exactly what I'm looking for. It's more so this leg that I'm focused on with the stretch, not so much this one. Well, that internal rotation is what I really need to focus on here for myself personally. The most basic version of a hip stability movement, single leg glute bridge. So super basic stability exercise there. All I'm trying to do is not let my hip on the opposite side that the foot isn't planted on to sit still so it doesn't rock either direction. And I'm just trying to squeeze my glute and feel a little bit of hamstring while I'm doing this. This is gonna pay off a ton when I go over and do RDLs here in a minute. Just goes ahead and wakes that hip up, creates a little bit of stability, and we can make this more difficult by, instead of me laying on the ground, I go to a bench. But I hadn't been doing these lately. Everything's felt really good, but now that we're starting to push into my off season, start to get stronger, I need to make these things a priority because my lower back's been a little wonky. What you may see a lot of people do for a warm-up is just leg swings, right? You might see some people do this and do a really passive, kick the fuck out of that back. They might do like a really passive leg swing like that. It's not a problem. It's definitely something you can do to get your hip moving, but the thing I'm about to show you is going to be something that will pay off a lot more than just arbitrarily swinging your leg through the air. It's going to create stability at the hip. So I'm going to use the pole over here because this requires a lot of stability. But what this is a hip airplane. When I first start, I'm just going to go up on one leg and I'm going to really focus on finding my foot. What that means is spreading my toes out, getting my foot really stable. You can see as I stand here, I'm wobbling just a little bit. I want to try and get really stable on that foot before I go through this. So I'll hang out here for a short period of time while I get that foot chilling. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hinge over. I feel that stretch in my glute and my hamstring. I'm going to tuck my hip down. So this is neutral. I'm going to tuck it down. I feel extra stretch on this side. And then I roll up with that hip this way. And I feel stretch on the inside. Back down. And then back up to the top. We're taking that hip through its full range of motion in all directions, creating stability at my adductor and my glute med, so then when I go do leg presses and RDLs, my hips are super stable. You often hear when people do squats or leg presses or whatever, they're like, man, the inside of my thighs are really, really sore. And if that's you, if that sounds like you, these are the movements that will help prevent that. The reason that happens is when I'm here and I'm really deep in the hole in a squat or a leg press, if my glute is not ready to do its job, the adductor on the inside tries to take over for it. And that's not its job. It's not supposed to do that. Your glute is what pulls us this way. It presses me this direction. My adductor is going to stabilize there, but its main function is not to pull that femur out of hip flexion, okay? If this is not working, this is gonna overwork, then you strain your adductors, and then you hurt for a long time, and then you can't squat, and then your gains suck. So the adductor has to know not just how to pull knees together on the adductor machine, it needs to know how to stabilize the pelvis. That's its main primary job. And it needs to stabilize the pelvis when we're doing all of our movements. So this is how we teach it that. So again, hinge over, tuck down, stretch on the outside, rotate up and open, stretch on the inside, back to neutral, back to the top. So my leg days, as I said in the beginning, have changed. My quads are pretty dominant as far as my total physique is concerned. So hamstrings is now taking the priority, and I have 2 days in my week where I'm really nailing hamstrings, today being the main primary one. I'm gonna start with the lying leg curl, get it to the fully shortened position, then I'm going straight to an RDL to stretch it out. I like doing leg curls before I do RDLs because it does reduce how much load I need. Plus, once I've already put blood in my hamstrings and then I go stretch it, it'll help open up the tissue a little bit more. It just helps me out a lot. So do what you want to, but this is what I like to do. You'll see I'm obviously doing that a lot different than most. Most people lay down and grab the handles, and I'm up and curved on the bench. The reason for that, it's a little bit of extra core stability. Plus, the contraction in the hamstring is crazy at the top. So with this, with that setup, you're gonna have to use a lot less weight than you normally do, but you're getting a better contraction from the hamstring because you're setting your hip in a position to fully shorten a lot better. Coming out of the show, I have the hernia surgery. My waist was really small. There's not a lot of extra stuff around my spine to keep me stable. So while my waist is smaller and I'm trying to put size back on, I'm gonna do movements that help me improve my core stability. So this here, being up and arched, contracting my core, keeping the hip still, helps me do a little bit of core stability work while also training my hamstrings. So I knock out 2 birds with 1 stone there, pretty easy. The logbook is oftentimes treated as the end all be all. And that's how when I first started using a logbook, how I treated it, of like, oh, if I did 100 pounds last week, I have to do 110 or 120, it has to go up. It's not the case. Your logbook is just a gauge to see, okay, this is what I did last time, how do I feel today, and what do I need to do to go forward to make progress? I hit 100 pounds on both sets, 12 and 11. I'm gonna keep that today. And my rep range is 8 to 12, or it's actually 10 to 15. So I got 12 on the first set. I'll probably try to get 13 or 14 before I make any increases in weight. So I'm gonna focus on connection, I'm gonna focus on execution, make sure that the weight I'm using, I can still execute well with, regardless of how many reps I get. We can work in a rep range anywhere from 6 to 30. I'm not gonna do 30 reps on this just because fuck that. But there's nothing wrong with going above 12 reps. Everybody wants to go 10 to 12 and stay there. There's nothing wrong with going above your rep range before you make an increase in weight. It was 2 weeks out, Saturday, so we're 12 days out from the Olympia. Got Clarita over there doing his thing, got his head down. I love seeing this stuff, man. Like this stuff, like you can tell, like I'm trying not to yell so he doesn't hear me over there, but like you can tell he's hurting. You can tell that he's struggling. But the thing you can also tell is he's fucking hungry. Because as soon as he grabs a hold of that bar and starts doing his set, nothing else matters. He's getting that shit done. And if you come to a gym like this and you're around high performers like that, first off, leave him alone. Second, use that energy. You see him busting his fucking ass, you bust your ass too. It's who you surround yourself and who you're around on a regular basis that will determine who you become. So like, watch people like that are high performers, that do this thing at a high level, and try to take away what you can from it more than just like how much weight they lift. That doesn't mean fucking anything. What matters is like how they handle themselves when they are dying, when everything sucks. You see him still busting his ass in order to make sure that he can win this thing. He's got a lot of people who are really hungry to take his Olympia spot, but the only thing he can do at the end of the day is be better than himself the day before, which gets to be really fucking hard when you're not eating shit. Fuck. RDL time. I've done videos on RDLs before, but I've made some tweaks to how I do them now. Very subtle differences, but we'll go through those. I'm still using the blocks because one of my biggest things that I have to make sure is locked in is my brace. If I have to like put this in a rack, walk it out, do all that stuff, it adds an extra component that might make me bracing on the bar a little bit more difficult. So I prefer to pull from the floor, but in order to keep a neutral spine, I can't lift directly from the floor. If I go directly from the floor, I start to round a little too much and it puts too much pressure on my lower back. So from the blocks, it allows me to start from the floor and brace in hard So just being tall. If you're a shorter individual, you don't necessarily need the blocks. If you have the mobility to get all the way down to the floor. When it comes to these deadlifts, you can see the plates wobble a lot because the hole in the plate is a lot bigger than where you actually put the plates on the bar. So if I'm using one of these clamps and I'm going all the way back down to the floor, this thing's gonna come off or slide, and then my plates are gonna do this, and the bar will shift. So instead, I use the Mackie Innovations Mac clamps. These bad boys, they twist in and lock in on the bar, so nothing's going to move on this. I'm nowhere near as strong as Joe Mackey. He uses these things with like 900, 1,000 pound deadlifts, and the plates do not shift at all. But even at this level, where I'm not using a ton of weight, there's still a problem if the plates start shifting. So slide these bad boys on. Make sure everything's nice and flush. I screw in both sides as tight as I can. And then that bad boy doesn't move at all. Some people are purists when it comes to using straps, and they'll swear that you have to not use straps in order to be legitimately strong on a deadlift. My grip strength does nothing for me on stage, so I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna use these because I would rather my glutes and hamstrings be the failing point than my hands. I'm not gonna be able to get as many reps if I'm just trying to hold on to that bar with just my hands alone. So if you don't wanna use straps, go for it. If you do, go for it. At the end of the day, if it makes you happy, it doesn't matter. I did, I think 6 or 7 with, I think I did 8 with a plate. And then I did 5 or 6 with 2, and now I'll do like 3 or 4 with 3. And then I worked with 3.5 on my first set last time, and then dropped down to 3 on the second 2. This is only my second session doing these. So like I talked about, we gotta practice the skill before I really start to push these things. I've been doing other movements similar, but getting back to this specifically, I gotta take my time with it, or else my back is gonna be really upset. Those felt really solid. If you've seen me do these in the past, I had a bit more of a hunched position when I'd get to the bar, and I'd be here. Over time, that's caused some pain in the middle of my back. So instead what I'm doing, tucking the elbows, getting the back tight, and I'm kind of pulling my chest to it. That keeps me really neutral throughout my whole back and has stopped me having so much pain. I've been really obsessed with the new Thy Art Is Murder album, so if any of you guys like heavy metal and you like really heavy metal, Thy Art Is Murder Godlike is the shit. I'm gonna hit some PRs. Whew. So there was probably still like 2 left in the tank. But while we're practicing the skill, trying to go to failure is not the best option. But, fuck. That felt more solid than last week by a lot. I hit the same reps, but connection was better and the weight didn't feel as ridiculously heavy. So I'll probably keep that weight, at least for set 2, and maybe back off for 3. We'll see. The one part about being heavier, it sucks, is how long it takes me to get my breath back. When I was like 220, everything was flying easy. Had to recover like that. Now we're sitting like 245. Oh, breathing heavy. I'm gonna reduce weight. Last week, I did 365 on the first set and 315 on number 2 and 3, but felt really good in those 2 sets. Previously I was doing like 1, maybe 2 all-out sets for like 12. But this off season, I want to try and move a little bit of weight here. So we're staying in that 6 to 8 range. I got 8 on the first and 6 on the second. It felt really solid. So the next couple of weeks, once my execution's locked in, we're going to be flying with this. Ow. Up until last week, I was doing a single leg hinge. So I was using a trap bar and I was doing a single leg variation. I decided I didn't want to waste all that time doing single leg stuff. So RDLs went in. Everything stayed in the same order, but with RDLs going in, that means the volume of weight that I'm using prior to coming to this leg press went up. The fatigue stimulus went way up. So in order to make sure that I don't continue to over fatigue myself, here, all I did was add a pause. So at the bottom, you're gonna see me stop, hold it for a second before I press. All that does is limit how much weight I can use for how many reps I can do it. So, prior to adding the pause, I was at 7.5 plates for 15 or 16. This last week, I did 7 plates for like 12 on my top set. So weight reduction and rep reduction, but the stimulus is different because of the pause in the hole. So I'll show you guys what that looks like when I'm not dying. Gonna get questions about my foot placement. You see my heels are coming off. My toes are what's pressing into the pad. All that's allowing me to do is get a deeper press so I can get lower. Doesn't really cause any issues or cause any pain, but if I just have my feet up on the pad, I don't feel like I can get the same depth just because of my ankles. Feels really solid, so I've been trying it. I saw it from good old Joe Bennett, hypertrophy coach. Thought I'd give it a shot, liked it, kept it. So this and leg extensions are my only quad movements in this session. Previous leg days would have like a squat, a leg press, and a leg extension, so I'd be anywhere from like 8 to 9 sets of quads, 8 to 10 sets of quads, whatever. Now I'm just doing 4. So my hamstrings and glutes need a lot more work than my quads, so I don't see a reason to put a ton of extra effort into extra volume for quads right now. It's just not what I need. I may end up adding more in the long run, but for now, hard focus on the hamstrings and glutes until we grow them enough. I like high reps for legs. So here I'm doing 12 to 15. Last time with the adjustment switching to a pause, I only got 12 on my first set and I got 10 on the second. So I should be able to beat both of those today, but we'll see. I'll end up keeping the same load, which was 7 plates or 630. All I do is I don't worry about how much the sled weighs. The sled is always going to be a consistent, so we don't have to worry about that weight varying. So I just count the plates that are on there because I have no idea how much this sled weighs. If you're going to use knee sleeves and you're doing bodybuilding, make sure you don't get the really thick ones. We're not trying to use powerlifting knee sleeves. The idea is just to keep the joint warm keep it stable, but the sleeve shouldn't be so tight that it's helping you do the exercise. Same thing with your knee wraps. If you're gonna use wraps, which for bodybuilding I don't think it's the best idea, but if it's what you're gonna use, don't cinch them so tight that your legs are stuck here, that they're stuck extended and you can't bend your knees. There should be just enough tension to keep the knee warm, keep the knee intact, but not death gripping the knee and helping you get through your set so you can use more weight. For me, this is just keeping things safe. I feel like everything's a little bit safer with them on. My knees don't have as much issues when I wear them, so it could be psychological. I don't care, it works. I realized like 4 reps in, I wasn't pausing. Oh well. Ooh. Oh. Okay, so I fucked up the first few reps. I didn't pause. Oh well. I'm fixing on the second set. So between sets, you'll see me really focused on my breath, and I'm focused on trying to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. The reason for that, breathing through your nose is more connected to your nervous system. If you breathe through your mouth, it's actually technically considered dysfunctional breathing. So deep breaths in through the mouth, or in through the nose, out through the mouth. It gets my heart rate to come down, which is what I want between sets, so that when I go and do my next set, I'm not still feeling like super exhausted from the set prior. So hard focus on deep breath into the nose, slow and controlled exhale through the mouth. Now time for second set. I'll take a few breaths when I sit down there, really relax. One thing that I don't do anymore that I used to do when I was younger, you'll see a lot of people get into a set when they're about to do something heavy and they'll really amp themselves up, they'll really get after it. But what I notice for myself, when I do that, it gets me too aroused, it gets me too amped up for the set, and then I lose my breathing and I lose my heart rate. My heart rate spikes too high. Next thing I know, I'm anxiously breathing, and next thing I know, the set's done when I should have had 4 or 5 more. So I actually try to go in these sets more calm, controlled on the breathing, and then when it's time to do the set, that's when I'm putting my energy into, not getting hyped up before I do it. Ah. 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 Oh. Oh. Seated leg curls next. With the order here, with trying to get the most out of my hamstrings, I put lying leg curl first and then seated leg curl at the end, because the lying leg curl is going to be the more difficult thing for me to get to for long sets. So like hip extended, knee flexed is the fully shortened position of the hamstring. Hip flexed, knee extended is the fully stretched position. The shortened position is going to be where we are the weakest. By putting the lying leg curl first, I can prioritize getting weight to the shortened position when I'm most fresh. Here, I can again stretch the hamstring out, pump some blood into it, and I still have plenty to output on this. All right, I did one warm up there. I don't feel like wasting more energy, so I'm just gonna hop into it after this. While I'm exhausted and waiting to do my next set, I'll fill you guys in on kind of game plan right now. There's still no show planned. We'll see if I end up doing one next year or not, but this coming year, I want to focus on travel. I want to get out and travel and see a bunch of stuff. Some work related, some fun, but that and doing more stuff with my son. So probably next year, I won't end up competing because I'm a tall person. I'm 6 foot. So to be competitive on stage, I was 226 with all my clothes on when I weighed in. I probably need to be closer to 240. And we put on 15 pounds in about a year and a half last time. So like, unless something crazy happens and we do it in a shorter period of time, that's probably about the time frame that we'll look at for the next competition. So off season officially started yesterday. So starting to push things a little bit. He actually brought my food down, but because I was an asshole while I was in Houston and ate a little too much good stuff. And he wanted to make sure that we weren't out of shape starting an off season. I have a tendency to put on a lot of body fat relatively quickly. So we pulled a little bit of food for now. I feel great. But the fun stuff went in. So we're gonna start to get some size on, get some strength rolling, and see if I can't be a real super heavy next time I get on stage instead of barely making it to super heavies. I did 150 on that first one. I'm gonna do 140 now. The weight is arbitrary. It's about using what you can to get yourself to failure in whatever range you have prescribed. So far, this has been a lot different leg day than what most people are used to. Used to seeing seated leg curls at the beginning and squats and different things like that. But this leg day is set up for me specifically and what my weaknesses are. So if you have questions about this leg day in particular or how you can set up your leg day better, drop a comment down below and let me know. I can address it in the next video we go over, or I can send you a message directly. So drop it in the comments, let me know what questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer anytime you guys leave them. Okay, clean this off, leg extensions. So I prefer this leg extension over our Life Fitness one for 2 reasons. The ability to change the strength curve with loading the pegs, and it stretches super far under, so I can get a really deep stretch on my quads here. That stretch is where we're gonna get the most progress. So like really being able to get the heels close to the butt is where you're gonna get a lot of damage to the tissue. So I can do that a lot better here than I can over on the Life Fitness version. My right knee has been bugging me. It's getting better, but it's been a little wonky when I get into that full extension position. So by loading this here, where it's heavier on the top peg and lighter on the bottom one, I actually reduce some of the tension that's at the top, which saves my knee a ton. So I'm gonna warm up once here just to get through the movement, see how that knee feels. And then I'll go from there. I'm keeping the weight the same from the last session. Just until that knee's better, I'm not gonna push these. Like I said, unfortunately, my quads can go on the back burner for a bit, so I don't have to be like really hard chasing progress here, but at least trying to maintain where I'm at is kind of what I'm looking to do. One more set here, and then adductors to finish out. A lot of times you'll see people do adductors at the beginning. Typically, a lot of bodybuilders will do like adductors to start, seated leg curls, and then go into their heavier quad compounds. Personally, good Lord, if I do adductors first and then I try to squat or leg press, my adductors will give out and they'll end up straining. So I end up with just a ton of pain in my adductor. So I put them at the end because when I'm doing leg presses, when I'm doing RDLs, my adductors are being worked. So just at the end, finish them off a little bit. It allows me to not have to use as much weight, and it puts me in a safer position so that I don't end up walking out with bad pain and not workout pain. Oh, fuck. All right, adductors. We touched on this at the beginning. Oh. So, huh? Yeah, they're feeling it today. So, obviously, we can get on this machine, bring our knees together, and that will train our adductors. But I can guarantee most of you can probably get on this thing and do most of the stack and push your knees together for a solid set. But I guarantee you go over and try and do that hip airplane that I did at the beginning of the session, you're gonna die. You're gonna be wobbly and like, holy shit, like I can't do this. There's two different things that that muscle does. One is action, one is function. Action is what we're gonna do here, bringing my knees together. Function is stabilizing your pelvis. So keeping things stable. It is there to, yes, bring your knees together, but it also keeps everything stable while we're moving through different movement patterns. So just because you can do a lot of weight here doesn't necessarily translate to better stability. So you should be trying to work on both. You should be trying to improve your adductors from a standpoint of stability so that you can better output. You should also be trying to improve them from a strength standpoint for hypertrophy purposes, because on stage, big adductors creates the legs, gives them illusion of being bigger. Simple as that. Everybody wants big sweeps. They don't think about the inside part pushing out this way as well. So make sure you train adductors, but also make sure you stabilize adductors. When I'm coming in and I'm letting go, it's all super smooth. So I'm not slamming it together and I'm not rushing out of the contraction. Very smooth movements on the adductor because it's really easy to strain and it hurts when you do that. So very smooth and controlled. I don't try and obliterate myself on these personally. I have friends that will go super hard on this, and more power to them, but knowing myself personally, if I do that, I'm gonna end up with some kind of pain that I don't want. So I do it this way instead. One more set and we'll call it a day. I've been doing all my own training for a long time. I have Chris Tuttle is my nutritionist and he handles everything like nutrition and all that stuff, but I do my own training. So through the process of learning from other people, through the Prescript group, through other trainers here, through other trainers that I've just had the opportunity to run into over the years, I've kind of cultivated stuff that works really well for me. And a lot of it I've been able to transfer to clients, but there is no one size fits all when it comes to training, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to any of this stuff. So there's two ways for you to handle this. You can do all that research on your own and go through all the trial and error and maybe take a bit longer to hit the results that you want. Or you can hire somebody, you can hire a coach, have them weed through all the shit so that you don't have to waste time trying to figure out all this stuff, right? That's where having someone who's been through the experience, paying them for that experience, is where you can take leaps and bounds above other people who are just trying to learn it as they go. Because I can tell you right now, if I had hired Chris Tuttle a lot sooner than I did, I would be a lot further along than I am now. I can guarantee you that. Hope you guys liked that session. Be sure, again, to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, leave a comment down at the bottom, share your questions with me. I'm here to help you guys. I'm a coach focused on taking you through the long haul of your bodybuilding journey. I'll see you guys next time.